To those that have been watching the video, I completely forgot to look at the screen for the last 20 minutes, and it got dark outside. Talking about all this. This is the worst PR for me right now. Hello and welcome to the How to Film Weddings podcast. John Bunn here today by myself. I recorded an episode while I was out at Venture Workshop with Archaius Creative with Breanna and David. This is a not only an outsourcing company, but they are doing a lot in the education space when it comes to teaching people how to edit. They are a 15-person team in Southern California that can do everything from culling your footage to fully editing your footage. It was a great conversation. We talked a lot about just their editing process and things you should be looking for while you're editing. So this is a great episode, just a quick episode for you to kind of be thinking about things for your edits. So let's jump right into the How to Film Weddings podcast. All right, so I'm here at Venture Workshop, and I'm joined by two friends that I've kind of known David for a second. But I want you guys to introduce yourself real quick, where you're from, why you're here at Venture, so our listeners can kind of hear who you are.
Totally. So I am Dave. I'm the founder and CEO of Archaius Creative, and this is...
I am Breanna, and I'm the creative team lead for Archaius Creative.
And we're based in Southern California, and... Yeah, it's pretty rough. We get a cloud once in a while that kind of ruins our day for an hour or so. But so we're a post-production house that primarily serves the event filmmaker community. We also do work with corporate, commercial, and educational clients too. But I started as a freelance editor in 2010. So really weddings are in our blood from the very beginning.
So we're out here in Denver. It's rainy, it's cold. It's not Southern California by any means. But I met you guys out at In Focus 2016. Is that when that was? I think so. In Texas, and kind of saw you guys in your vibe. You're out here at Venture. You're teaching some classes, those kinds of things. So I wanted to bring you guys on because I think that what you guys do is very important, not just because you are an editing house or something like that, but you guys see so many more films than we do. I see 20 films a year. You guys are seeing, hundreds, if not thousands of films per year. And so there are some common trends and things. And I know you're out here at Venture teaching on those things. So I really wanted to just kind of dive in for the listeners, whether you're a new shooter or you've been shooting for a while. I know that I learned kind of, by ear or by eye, I tried things out. If it worked, it worked. If it didn't work, it didn't work. And so I know you guys had a talk this morning, and I just kind of want to hear for the listeners kind of this editing process that you guys do, what you're thinking about. I know you guys talked about the creative edit, and so or the narrative, so maybe tell me what kinds of edits that you do, and then a little bit of the talking points from today's keynote, if you don't mind.
Sure. Want me to go for that one? So we talked a lot today about what we call the creative edit, and the reason why we term it that way is because we have a whole team back at the office. We have a team of 15 that is comprised of comprised of assistant editors, creative editors, and then a color and mix team. Mm-hmm. So our assistant editors will organize and cull all of the raw footage, sync up all the multicam, and then it comes to the creative editor's desk. So we get to just focus on actually creating the narrative, picking out music, picking out the best visuals. And we have you are correct. We've seen hundreds of films probably a year. Mm-hmm. I've seen a couple hundred just in my time with Archaius. I know Dave's probably seen quite a few more. Mm-hmm. And so we've developed it's kind of hard to explain. It's a scientific system in order to identify our narrative, identify our best visuals, but we also want to push ourselves to not develop any cookie cutter type of films because that's very much where the wedding industry is going as a whole. Mm-hmm. And so today we were just talking about kind of how to compartmentalize the process.
And what does that look like? Tell me what the compartments are.
The compartments are, so we review all of our A-roll first. And our A-roll is going to be ceremony, speeches, first look, letter reading, anything that has a high quality source audio tied to it. We review all of that, just kind of a once through, and notate all of the best sound bites. So anything that is going to be the best way to convey the couple's story, be it their love story, how they met, what brought them to this day. And then we go from there into organizing all of our B-roll. So we take all of the events of the day and organize them in these, like, what do you call them, chunks? Do you want to go from with that?
Yeah, I can talk about. So for the B-roll, it's really important for us to put in some time on the front end to systematically organize our footage so that we're not continually scrubbing through large timelines of footage. So if two shooters are shooting the bride prep, we will take each section of what they're shooting. So she said, so to use the term compartmentalization, we would take both of the instances where, let's say a grandmother is doing like a flower girl's hair and she's braiding her hair, maybe putting like a flower wreath in. We'll take both instances of that footage from the two shooters and bring it into one consolidated chunk and put a marker over it. And then we'll do that for that entire sequence. So then both shooters have their footage in the same spot for the makeup, for the hair, for the dress. And then we do it for all of the sequences, at least especially in the prep space. And so it is kind of a meticulous, like an hour and a half or so on the front end. But then the time it saves down the line is nice because then we can locate footage very quickly because of the marker system, either in Premiere or in Final Cut X. And then from there, we go into selecting music. You'd probably be a better person to speak on selecting music, I think.
Yeah, selecting music is always the hard part for everyone, right? It's kind of one of the things that people just dread, I think, in the process, because there's a lot to choose from, and it kind of makes or breaks your film. Oh, yeah. And so we have we're fortunate in the sense that we don't get the final choice. Like, our clients get the final choice on what song we pick. So we kind of scrub, or we'll go through the different subscription services and try to best pick what's going to best represent the brand. So if you have a very specific style of music that is associated with your brand, or what is best going to represent the couple and the vibe of their day.
Yeah. So for the people listening, just as a reiteration, these guys have a 15-person like editing dream team, basically, like what you want to have as a company. And what I think is really cool, like as a solo, like I own the company, I edit, I shoot, with what you guys have to offer and everything, like what we're kind of going at is not necessarily like just to talk about what you guys can do for them, but they see so many things in these edits. And so like as they're walking through, as a reiteration, their A-roll, that footage, that any narrative, just anything where there's a spoken word where it's like that's actually happening and you want to show that actual thing, it's the A-roll. We talk about getting B-roll all the time, but I don't think we ever talk about A-roll or why that is the B-roll. I mean, the second, the B-roll would be the pretty stuff that goes on top of it. And so I know that you talked a little bit about like crafting the edit. And so my edits, the way I do it, I'll have the A-roll kind of all figured out and pulling the snippets of the A-roll and setting that in a timeline in the order that I want it to go in. And then the next thing I do is I find a song that I really like that goes with it, and then time the different portions of the day and loop the song or find different climaxes in the song. And it's like I want the kiss to happen right here, so I move that portion of the A-roll right there. And then the very last thing I do is the pretty sprinkling, the fairy dust, if you will. That fairy dust of the B-roll to fix it. And so... Yes, basically B-roll bay. That's might be a new term we have to use. But anyway, I mean, so there's that side of things which you guys do, but like with seeing all of these films, with seeing, and you can definitely reach out to them. We'll put the show notes, like the way, if you have more questions for them about just like how it's set up. But that's in general kind of how you guys set it up too, where you grab the A-roll, you set it, you sync it to music, and then you put the B-roll, and then kind of color it in audio and stuff like that after. Is that how that works?
Yeah, and I mean, we're in a little different, like a unique position in that we weren't we're never there the day of. Right, so it's a really thorough exploratory phase for us where we never get the opportunity to leave the wedding day and go like, oh man, like the father of the bride gave a killer speech. We have to either discover that on our own, or we have an intake process for each project where the filmmaker can have those call outs to us to kind of guide the edit, which helps inversely too if they're like, yeah, that uncle gave a fantastic speech, but he's like estranged from the family, so like you can't use it either way. And so the same is true for the B-roll, right? Where we're making music selection after we've reviewed all of that footage, so that way we know, is the vibe of the day going to be complemented through the music?
And I do that too. I mean, I'll always cut up all my B-roll footage before the song as well. I mean, that's the first step in my whole process is like, syncing everything and then cutting through B-roll. But like when it actually comes to putting it onto the timeline, that's how I pull together that narrative. Like I tell that story, then kind of line up the music with it, then know based on the B-roll that I've cut, like this shot of the mom putting the dress on is going to work well with the dad talking about mom when she was, with the bride when the bride was a little girl, and that kind of thing. And it is an interesting, thing that you guys aren't there while it's actually happening, since you're an editing house. So I think the question I want to ask is like, if you could tell people like that are sending you films, please stop doing this, or please get more of this, or please, what stands out to you, like 3 to 5 things or however many, that it's just like, man, if people would do this, their films would be so much better?
I think the thing I always go to with that question is portrait sessions, like family portraits or even portraits with the couple. You don't want to shadow the photographer. You don't want to be capturing the exact same thing the photographer is capturing, because that's what the photographer is there for. And the whole point of offering a video service is movement, right? Is the emotional storytelling, is the real visual elements. And you want to kind of keep your head on a swivel and explore the things around the room, around the event space, around what is actually happening in front of your camera, to make sure that you're capturing the little moments that the bride and groom may not get a chance to see. Like a wedding is a very busy day for anyone who's been married before. Like it is a very busy day, and the bride and groom are very zeroed in. But this is a day to celebrate with their family and with their friends, and you're going to get a very happy couple if you capture that time in between photo sessions when maybe grandma is giving the groom a kiss on a cheek, or having this little private moment that they've stolen away together. And that's going to read a million times better than the perfect posed kind of cheesy photo that photographers are going to make look beautiful, because that's what they do. But you are there to capture, I think, those moments that the photographer can't bring to life in the same way.
Yeah, I mean, just speaking to portrait session real quick, like it is the in-between time that has some of the most value in video format. Like the end product of a photographer photo session for them is the perfect composed and posed smiling shot. But it's like it's the time in between where the bridal party is kind of getting situated, getting adjusted, bumping into one another, maybe getting instructions from the photographer. Someone says something stupid and they all laugh. Like that's the time to really be hitting record, I think, as far as like offering a different experience than what photo does. And then my other advice would be to know what you can fix in post and what you can't, because I guess we've seen before that filmmakers can get caught trying to get the perfect slider shot or something, or the perfect reveal, when really like the first one or two were okay, and it's then you throw some stabilization on it in post and it evens it out just fine. So rather than kind of zeroing in on getting that perfect execution in production, knowing what you can get away with in post, and not to fall back on like, oh, just fix it in post, because that's like a bad move. But there's a place for that, right? Like there are things in post that you can do to where maybe you got 1 or 2 takes of that slider shot and then you're moving on to the rest of your day.
And I'll say too, one thing that I've been doing in my edits, in my shooting, because I was having somebody else on my team edit, and then being the one to edit it myself again, it's like, oh, I wish I would have held that shot longer, or I wish I would have let it record longer. And so one of the things that I've been doing is like if the photographer's taking photos or whatever, I'm usually, after they get the shot, like just letting it roll for 3 to 5 more seconds. That's usually when the footage that I use, because nobody really wants footage of themselves just going smiling at the camera. And so like I will stand next to the photographer and say, hey, right after this photo, can you have them just all look at each other and giggle, or like, and I'll cue them if I need to. But if it's a photographer I'm working with, I might just say, hey, after the shot, I want to grab something. Last Saturday, I was with a photographer I work with a lot, and she does a lot of like movement in her, so I didn't have to like cue people. But the weekend before, I was with a photographer that's very posed, and I stood right next to him and was like, hey, right after you get this, I want to do something. And the couple was just like cheesing right at the camera. And then after that, I was like, hey, whisper your Taco Bell order in her ear, and so like in a Batman voice, I think I said, I have silly things, and they start giggling, and, that's when I'm filming. And then I hear the photographer going, taking photos of that, because it's way more natural. So that's a good point. Other things in the edit that I would wonder if they drive you crazy, since you see so much of them. Like one of them was just overshooting, which you're saying, like the slider shots or like 50 shots of the cake, things like that. And then I was wondering just like how you're receiving audio from people, as well as like, is the color balance good in camera? Are you seeing that being done well? Or are there, like what kinds of things to new people shooting, people that might have been shooting for a while? What advice would you give them, while shooting in itself?
While shooting in itself, so I guess, yes, the biggest thing we see is probably too much footage at times. And something we're going to be speaking about on Thursday is you want to shoot for your runtime. So you want to shoot for your deliverables. If you are shooting a 5-minute highlight, it's going to be, the amount of footage you have to get is very different from a 20-minute feature. That's not to say that you can like not shoot as much or maybe slack off in any sort of way during that highlight shoot, but you're going to want to definitely cherry pick your shots and your composition and what you're going through in that day, whereas on that 20-minute feature shoot, you're going to be capturing a lot more events throughout the day in order to keep it interesting and keep the flow going. But 9 times out of 10, I think when I'm editing someone's work, I will use your first slider shot. So unless you've changed something in the next one, like if you're just going back and forth, I will use your first one. If you are gonna like change the angle, change the composition, that is ideal. So just in case we are working through something and trying to use a transition, like a movement transition, it's really nice to be able to make them similar or make them very different in order to whatever we're trying to achieve. As far as audio and color.
I guess I could say for color, just know how much grading you want to do, right? So like if you want more control in the color space, then, a flatter profile is going to be more helpful. But if you kind of aren't interested in spending your time doing color in post, or that's just not part of your brand, then shooting closer to true will save you that time. But it runs the risk too, where now your colors are a little more baked in. I think maybe in the prep space, part of what would be helpful a lot is trying to avoid situations with mixed lighting. And it may be, I don't know, being a shooter or not being a shooter, it's easy to say, right? Like, oh, just go in and like turn off all the lights and open the windows. Like, I'm not there the day of, so I'm never in that awkward position of like, hey, everybody, you're going to be in the dark now. But I know at least, from an unbiased editing perspective, it's a much more even picture, right? Same thing with like turning the radio off so that you can get like that clean chatter from the room, that nice walla, or like, maybe someone gives an impromptu speech all of a sudden in the prep space. So thinking ahead to audio and color in those ways is kind of more in line with what our conversation on Thursday is going to be about.
And I'll ask you about that here in a second, since this will show way after Thursday, and we won't be ruining any surprises. But, what I think it really comes down to, and I think that this, being at conferences is always fun because you see all of the gimbals and all of the things, and it's like everybody wants the newest toy and the newest drone. And the people that we've interviewed that have a much more simplistic approach to the day, a few lenses, monopod, tripod, maybe a gimbal. They're not trying to do too much, but they're focused on really good composition, really good lighting, making sure it's not mixed lighting, and then making sure that it is as quiet as possible in the space, minus the noise that you actually want to be coming through, in capturing that clean audio. I think a lot of us don't feel like we have the ability as the shooters. You might not be able to speak on this, but like a lot of us, I think, because we're at the wedding, a lot of people, especially that are new, feel like they don't have any say in like coming into a room and being like, actually, can we move this couch over for the interviews and open this window and turn off this overhead light, and can we kill if you've had that conversation with a bride beforehand and say, hey, I'm going to come in the room and I'm a light snob. I just want to let you know, because your skin's going to look the best in a natural window light. It's like a nice cloudy day or a softbox, and just kind of explain that to them. Also, if there's a bunch of noise, I'm going to just be listening, all day long for that kind of stuff. And so the more that you focus on that and like getting your colors right in your camera and giving... Like, I know that when I get back to my editing bay, like, especially at the beginning, I would be getting, like, this really great shot of the cake or whatever. And, like, I'd almost have it, and then I would cut. Like, I wouldn't give myself, like, just enough or hold it, or, like, just put my camera on a tripod and get a shot of something, leave it for a second. 1, 2, 3, done. I got it. And so I've been working a lot on just getting a medium, a tight, and a wide of each thing. When the details, I need a wide shot of the cake. I don't need 12 wide shots of the cake. I need a medium shot of the cake so I can see some, pretty close, like top to bottom, the whole cake, and then a tight shot so I can see some details. It's not this big, like, okay, I've got to like really think. Like, I think we just get so nervous that we're not going to get it. Do you guys see? I know you kind of mentioned it, but like, do you see the majority of these weddings just having like way too much footage? Like, I know you said you took the first slider shot, but what kinds of things are you just seeing besides like a slider shot? What kinds of things are you seeing that it's just like, why, like that you continually ask yourself, why is there so much of this?
So I think it happens a lot in preps and probably general dancing, but like the backs of people. And I know it's hard to kind of like, because you're trying to do the fly on the wall approach, and you're trying to not intervene in anything or draw attention to yourself, but that's also leaving like no space to actually make emotional connections with someone, because we make our connections by seeing someone's face, by looking at their eyes, by reading the emotions on their face. So if you're in preps and you're only seeing the backs of people's heads, and I'm not just talking about your bride and groom, right, but the other people in the room, then it kind of creates this weird, almost like wall that you've developed into your composition. And it's kind of blocking you from really kind of getting involved and getting fully encompassed in what's going on. And general dancing, I think it happens a lot just because the dance floor can get dangerous, I think, in the evenings, at least from what I've witnessed on the footage. But being able to get in there and get some really interesting shots of people twirling around and jumping up and down and having this amazing time feels so much more relatable than just standing at the back of the room. Now, those wides do serve a purpose. I think it's great to hear that you are like really thinking of that and being like wide, tight, medium, like, so you have that ability to choose what's going to work best. Yeah, and you're not stuck, right? You're not stuck in any box. You can make it work once you get there. But like trying to get in there and get the nitty gritty is always great too. I don't know if you've seen anything.
My thought would be like establishing shots throughout various times in the day. So having like transitional moments where a lot of times we'll get footage where the coordinator or like, the venue staff are setting up the reception space, and that's during the daytime, right? And then, so that is in the front end of the film if it's like a linear storytelling style. And then toward the end of the day, there's like more stabs of the inside of the venue where it's finished, but it's evening time. Sometimes it's nice for to build in that safeguard if you got an exterior of the venue at night, because that's like kind of sets the stage for some time has passed since the last time we've seen this venue, especially because I think there's like a little bit of a lull between, or a lack of footage maybe between cocktail hour where it's like kind of dusk-ish, and then like straight up night inside at the reception. So if you have that transitional shot kind of letting the audience know that like time has passed, that could often help. And then my other suggestion would be variety in the sense of like the tight, medium, wide is great, as well as covering like the beginning, middle of and end of processes. So if again with like venue prep, right? So the staff is getting the cutlery out of like a tray, and then they're kind of arranging it on the napkin and then folding the napkin. Working in tight, medium, wide to all of those stages of the process. And another part of that variety would be like the reaction shot or the shot reverse shot. So seeing the woman's face putting it down kind of gives you, again, that like emotional connection. Because I think one thing I've noticed is like people over things. Like you'll have a more relatable experience if you're seeing a lot of faces over seeing like decor shots. Like those have value, especially if you're posting on Love Stories TV and looking to tag vendors and tag florists and stuff like that. That is great. I just think ratio wise, it may be better to dedicate more runtime to faces and people.
And I think, too, one thing I've been really focusing on, and I think I heard Sarah Pendergraft from Penn Weddings say this, but just like action and reaction to things. I think a lot of times during the ceremony, a beautiful moment is happening up front, and Grandma is just melting in the front row. And you guys don't get to see this if they don't capture it, but having, like, when some action is happening, to be thinking, who's reacting to this? And, it doesn't necessarily work with, like, cutlery being put down, but, like, the bride putting on her dress, I like to be able to see Mom's face because I don't want to be in the room when she's changing, but if I can get an angle where I can just see Mom while she's like seeing her daughter in the dress for the first time, or just that action of seeing it come on, like be put on, but then there's that reaction, those little things. And I know that we've talked about it before on our podcast, but just like shooting for the sequence, talking about like, okay, I'm thinking as I'm on the wedding day, like I have a shot, like you were saying, a beginning, middle, and an end of something. I might be getting a shot of the bride as she's getting kind of, getting going, getting ready or something, or her hair's getting, but then an actual shot with her getting all the way done, or getting out of the chair and walking away, or, your groom prep, he's got his jacket off, he puts it on, you get a wide shot of that, and get him to do a tighter shot of like straightening it up, and then a real tight shot of his hands buttoning it. It's like these little mini stories throughout the day, and then just getting a shot of his face. And I think we forget that shot, which is what you're saying. It's like just a really solid shot of his face where it's like, hey, look out the window and then just look straight into my camera and think about her. So he turns, smiles, looks at her. It looks great. Like Mom's going to be really happy that shot is in the film. And then when you're shooting like that, it's like, oh, I have a shot of the groom, a story of the groom, beginning, middle, and end. I need to get a shot of the bride and try to match that. And so that's the next thing I kind of wanted to just kind of mention is like if I'm having a bride read a letter and I've framed her to the left of the screen, I want to be thinking about that and either tell my second shooter, I want to frame the groom to the right of my screen so it looks like when I'm cutting back and forth, like they're kind of looking at each other, or just kind of when you're shooting in that moment in the day, if you're just kind of shooting to shoot and not thinking about the edit itself, you're going to miss out on like some incredible symmetry that could be really great. And, there's so many different instances. So like a lot of times I'll use like a frame that's on the wall or something when bride's getting ready. And like you can see the picture, a reflection of her, and I'm focused on the frame, but then I'll rack focus and there's the bride getting ready. And I might rack back to like, or rack out of it or whatever. But like I like to have a shot of the groom in some type of reflection as well. Maybe not to show right after, but I like having that symmetry, that option. So as you're shooting during the day, just having that, like, I think that you guys probably see it a lot where it's like, man, I hope there's a shot that kind of flip-flop, like matches this, and it's like, oh no, they didn't get that. And so like, that's one thing I want to encourage the people that are listening is like, when you are shooting, to just definitely be thinking about the edit while you're doing it. Make notes if it's on your phone or in your head of like, oh, I need to get that kind of a shot. And I've done it before where I'm even like writing out on my phone beforehand, I want to get a shot of the bride, like a really long shot through something of the bride, and I want to do the same thing of the groom. Or like, so I know that like it's not like a shot list, but I'm like, just trying to match that. So anyway, that's a lot of me talking. I want to hear, you mentioned what you guys were going to be talking about on Thursday. Kind of give me the basics of the talk for Thursday, what you guys are going to be going over. As we're recording this, it's Tuesday of the workshop. So like a couple days from now, you've got one more class here. Kind of give me the rundown on what that class is about and just kind of dangle some bait out on what the class is.
We've actually already talked, I think, a lot about our key points in the sense of like shooting for runtime, not shooting to look busy, keeping your head on a swivel in order to capture those more genuine moments and very specific moments that are happening outside of what your bride and groom are doing, and like shooting for composition, making sure you have what you need for when you get to the editing portion of it. Because when you're there the day of, you kind of have your blinders on and you're just like, wheels to the ground, trying to make sure that you get everything you need and get in and get out and not miss anything. But when you get back to your home base and you're editing and you're in that chair, sometimes you're yelling at yourself, or if you have another team, you may be yelling at your other team. I can't remember any of the other points off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's some feedback that we've gotten as far as like videographers we've worked with asking for like a film critique sort of a situation where they're like, help me improve my films and whatnot, or they're saying it's really great to work with you because when I was editing my own stuff, I was yelling at my past self and these situations that I was just like not setting myself up for success later. So the feedback are like, some of the suggestions that we're giving in our next conversation are from like, advice that we've seen beneficial to other filmmakers' shooting styles. But another one, I guess, is like shooting for your brand. So if you know how you tend to use footage, the movements that you tend to incorporate, like, a more, I don't know if the word cinematic is still trending, but like, utilizing like longer sweeping glide cam shots and stuff like that. Just making sure that actually does complement what your brand is. Maybe thinking ahead to some of the do's and don'ts that you've either shaped your brand around or have had feedback from your couples. So one thing that we've heard is like brides that don't want to see any footage of themselves before they have like their foundation on, but there's like a lot of footage of them before their foundation is on. So maybe thinking ahead to that and asking maybe the makeup artist to do like some final touches, and then that will serve as like your makeup sequence, just because you're kind of anticipating ahead of time the feedback that your bride could be giving you.
Yeah, and I think it all comes back to anticipating what's coming, next in the day, having a game plan. And then one thing that I would like especially for newer people, like you're going to get better the more that you do it. And if you are the one shooting and editing your own films, make notes when you're editing so future you is happy with, the future, the next edit that you do, because that's the only way you're going to get better is that. And then the other thing I always recommend to people is have in your edits, have a buddy system with somebody where it's like, you watch my films, I'll watch yours, and really be not hateful, but as like critique this as hard as you can, because it'll only make you better. And so we've really been pushing that in our Facebook group. We have a Facebook group, How to Film Weddings. It's growing really fast. You guys are in it, or you're in it. You're not. You might be in it. Okay. Search How to Film Weddings on Facebook. We got to always throw those shameless plugs in there. But yeah, I mean, that community, you can find people and critique each other's films. And the more that you're able and let yourself be critiqued, the better you will get at all of this. And so I always tell people, don't beat yourself up if you're not doing it perfectly. The couple's going to love it. This is just, you honing in on your craft and making sure that you're getting better. And by thinking of these kinds of things and just going into your next shoot, thinking about, I'm going to think, through sequences, and I'm going to try to make sure the color isn't mixed, and I'm going to try to think about audio, and I'm going to, if you're thinking about those things, you are better than like 9 out of 10 other wedding videographers out there in the world. And so whether you're bringing on, a crew to help you with the edits or not, that's going to be huge benefit for the future. Anything else you guys want to add about like your content that you guys are doing this week? or anything for the listeners that before I move on to the next part?
No, I mean, I think that. No, no, I think we covered it pretty solidly. I mean, just having a system for your workflow in the editing bay is extremely beneficial. Something repeatable that will save you time down the line. Like put in the effort up front to get everything organized, and it'll save you time. That's like the message of our first class here at Venture. And then the second one is, just be thinking about the end product, because all of the footage exists to be edited. Right, like we've only seen one filmmaker that has a package that is raw footage only. Like they don't even cut a film together. That's like the exception, not the rule, right? Like footage is meant to be edited. So if you're thinking about the edit while you're creating the pieces of that edit, then the end product will just be that much stronger.
There's a lot more that I know that you guys have a ton of knowledge. I know you're kind of dabbling and you're starting to create education for people. I want to hear a little bit about that, just kind of what you guys are doing, the kinds of videos that you've made so far, just kind of the direction you're going with educating people. And then after that, we'll kind of talk about the services that you guys offer in case anybody out there listening in the world wants to, maybe reach out to you guys. So first off, what did I just ask? That's it. Yeah. My brain's a little tired from the last 2 days. Yes, the education side of things. Tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing. I know I keep seeing your face, the videos you guys are shooting. So tell me all about that.
For sure.
I can probably take that first one, and you can talk more about the next one. But so Ask the Editor was something that was developed because people have asked us for it so much. Something we hear a lot of is, I only take so many edits, so I don't necessarily need help with post-production services, but like I would love help in order to get better. Like I would love someone to like bounce feedback off of, or I just want to get better, and who do I ask my questions to? And there's a lot of great people out there who are developing educational content. There's a lot of great people here, including this podcast, that is really helping people out. But again, we have this really unique perspective in the sense that we don't shoot. I haven't shot a wedding since 2012. I don't know when was the last time you shot a wedding, but we don't shoot, so we are very removed from it and from the actual day, and we don't experience the obstacles that you've gone through. We don't experience any of the trials or tribulations you may face with the people at the wedding. Right. So all we see is the footage, and all we see is how to make the edit, and you're your own worst critic. So sometimes having someone else to bounce ideas off the top of your head or bounce ideas off of is going to help you really grow without getting bogged down in the sense of being perfect, like you mentioned. The type of ones we've put out so far are a little bit about our workflow, because again, it's something we've developed over hundreds and hundreds of films over several years. But also getting more into like our preferred programs, like is what we're developing now, and then different types of really usable features within Premiere and the Adobe platform. Right now we're developing some stuff for everyone on Final Cut 10. Mm-hmm. So it's just really bite-sized nuggets that I think you can take back when you're working through something, and just maybe try something different or learn something different for anyone who's already fairly familiar with the program, I think. Mm-hmm. And then as far as the rest of that.
Did you?
Yeah, I was going to ask. Yeah. So if I've seen it on Instagram, where would people to go? Like this is like free, like helpful information. I mean, there's more stuff, but like it's very helpful information, little tidbits. If you're listening, it's like these people, they're not at the wedding, so it's kind of a cool thing. Like if you shoot in a way that it's like, okay, I'm going to shoot this like I'm not actually the one editing it. I'm shooting it for an editor, even though if the editor is you, it's like I want to give that person a lot of really good stuff. So like having that mindset and stuff, but like these things are things you guys have learned from hundreds and hundreds of edits. And it's like, oh, if people, would do it this way, or if we could, this is how we do it, because this is your life. The edit for me is half of the job, not, the shooting is an entirely different world, and capturing good audio and, all this stuff. You guys are getting it as is and working from that. And so you've created all these processes, that's got to be it. Like you guys have created all these processes where it's like, this is the best way to be efficient in your editing. to color correctly, to audio, all the way down to just like, so it's very helpful stuff. The ones that I've seen, I've just been like, yes, I wish I had this whenever I was, a kid. And so where can they find that stuff to start with? And then after that, I want to hear, since we have this one mic, tell me just about the services that you guys offer. As much as you want to tell, give us the shameless plug for your business and where, we can find all that stuff.
Do the Ask the Editor.
Oh, okay, so ask the editor. No, you're fine. Ask the Editor. You can find it on our YouTube channel, which is Archaius Creative, and our Instagram will post all of the promos to it and just kind of reminders, which is also at Archaius Creative. And then I guess all socials are roughly that. And but yes, it's all. And then we have a link to on our website where you can actually submit your questions. So if you go to archaiscreative.com. We have a whole tab dedicated to where you actually submit your questions, and it's ask@archaiscreative.com.
Yeah, so they can either email. It's a new thing we're rolling out. You can either email ask@archaiscreative.com or go to archaiscreative.com/ask. Those are the two primary ways of. Did we lose the?
To those that have been watching the video, I completely forgot to look at the screen for the last 20 minutes, and it got dark outside. Talking about all this. This is the worst PR for me right now. We slowly got dark. So welcome back to YouTube. Did you know we have a YouTube channel too? It's just youtube.com/howtofilmweddings. If you want to watch the travesty that was the footage here a minute ago. Yeah, like a 25-minute keyframe. Yeah, I'm going to have to send that in to you guys. But yeah, I looked up at the screen, and it was like we were dark. I was like, something's wrong with that camera over there. Oh, no, I suck at what I do.
So I saw it from this angle, and I was like, oh, the screen must be out.
So anyway, if you're watching, you've probably stopped watching at this point. So just the audio is decent. Probably, maybe not. I brought a minimal amount of stuff to venture, but I didn't mean to interrupt you. But yes, we will link all the stuff for where they can find you. You do offer a lot of services, and it's really cool. I know we've talked just about the different kinds of things. Tell the listeners just from very basics to chunk, just if somebody wants audio or somebody, give me the full rundown of what you guys do as a company and why, what's your mission? Why do you do it?
Totally. I guess to just segue from the educational content into the services, we also do have educational content available for purchase too. So we have a course that covers front to back our entire ingesting workflow. So I guess this is kind of a good segue into the services too. Our projects are all broken up into the 4 phases that you kind of mentioned earlier, right? So the rough cutting, which is culling and ingesting, creative, editing, and then color and mix. So those are the 4 big ones for wedding films. And so we have an entire course, I think it's an hour and a half of content, video course all on just that first stage. So just ingesting, sorting through all your clips, organizing them. It's all for Premiere users right now. And I know that White and Reverie has an awesome master class that we've actually taken to on the specifics of working through Final Cut X. So they are an excellent resource for the X platform. Ours is specifically tailored toward Premiere users. So there's that. And then also at Venture, we're actually launching a coaching service. So kind of those one-on-one consultations as far as either the film shooting critique or coaching in that way. Workflow. Breanna has had requests to just have people just peep on her while she's editing. So or is that not a good term?
Don't say peep.
Okay. have people just watch while you edit, watch your workflow, see the kinds of. Hey, it wasn't. Work my way out of that one. Sorry. Yeah. But just have that kind of inside one-on-one time with an editor so you can ask very pointed questions. So that is a new offering as a service, but also in the educational space. When it comes to the actual editing services, we can do raw to deliverable. So we have working relationships with clients that shoot with the intention of giving it to us that in the way where they never touch it other than revisions. And revisions in the sense that they're giving us feedback. But other than that, we're doing everything from importing the cards, doing all that ingesting I was just mentioning, working through the creative edit, going through revisions with them, doing color grading and audio mixing. So that's like full service editing services. And then we also can basically parcel out any portion of that. So whether it's just color grading, so your film is done but uncolored, whether it's the same thing but for audio mixing and mastering, we can do just that. We can do just the culling and ingesting. And that's helpful for filmmakers to just get a leg up to where they don't have to go through like the minutia and the tedious nature of logging all of your clips and whatnot. Or first cut only. So that's like those first 2 stages, and then but no revisions or color mix. So you can just like get a first cut, make your final tweaks, do the finishing touches, and then you're done. And then like other wonky combos in between. Like sometimes people will ingest their own media, send us that, and then we'll just do a first cut. And then they'll make their revisions, and then we'll do color mix. So like it's kind of anything and everything. And we really wanted to do that because at the cornerstone of the company is to fit into existing workflows the best way we can and to bring the highest value to filmmakers' lives so that they are spending their time behind the computer in the parts of the process that bring them the most fulfillment. So if color grading and audio mixing is their jam and that they love that, they love putting the final touches on things, great. They can keep that in-house. Every time that they're working on a project, they're optimized in their highest fulfilling space, and we're doing all the stuff that maybe isn't as like fulfilling to them. So it's really important for us to be able to be adaptive and take pieces away so that they can retain what they can in-house. And that's also like, a cost-saving measure for them as well. So did I miss anything in the services?
As far as I guess our philosophy, I think that maybe you hadn't quite touched on.
I thought I did that just now.
Yes, a big thing that we try to differentiate ourselves from like our competition is we don't actually like the term outsourcing. We don't like being considered because one, it's scary. It's very scary for filmmakers to outsource anything, to give up their brand in a way, to kind of like give up creative freedom over their end product is very scary, and we totally understand that. But we want to develop very collaborative relationships with our clients to the point where we're actually like friends with our clients. I think like we're both on social media with a lot of our clients and interact on a non-work basis. Like when I got engaged, I had 6 people reach out to me congratulating me and then immediately like, I want to film your wedding. And so now I have a lot of people to choose from. But we want to have that open communication and we want to collaborate with you, and we only want to deliver what is your product and what is going to best serve your couples and your brand. So that's, I think, how we try to deliver like a different quality product than maybe some of our competition is. And it gives us this really great, I think, dynamic in our office. Like we get to have a lot of fun when we go to work, and we don't deal with the stress of the actual shoot day.
It sounds like you guys have a really awesome job, and like I said, when I met David at InFocus, like the team that I met, I mean, it was like real people that were really cool, and I think it's neat that like for some of us, years are much busier than others or not, and it's like right now I'm pretty caught up, but if I get behind a little bit, knowing that there is a team that would be part of my team, not an outsource, like hope it's great. I've tried outsourcing videos to places in other countries or different things and it was just really hard to communicate and everything. And like you guys being here and being able to like really communicate, it does feel like part of the team. And it's like, if all I need is somebody to cut through my footage, or I've cut through it all, I've done it all, I just want somebody to like make sure it looks and sounds as pretty as possible, you can help with that. And so, as people are going through and editing their stuff, if they get behind, definitely check out Archaius. I mean, I know that you guys are really great about like looking at the style of the brand that you're working with and like coming alongside instead of just being like, a shot in the dark, like hope we get this right, and so there's a ton more information about you guys, what all you do. I would recommend, David, you're in our group. If you have questions, just, we'll definitely tag you with this episode, and like, you know, we want to bring you on and have you as one of the people that like really are a resource with that education and stuff just for people as they're getting better. So if you have questions for them, jump in our Facebook group, and, you know, it helps them to create more content if they know what the questions are, what people are struggling with. I know that it's a busy schedule, so I really appreciate you guys coming on. And thank you again, Archaius Creative. Find them on Instagram and their website. We'll link them below. Anything else you guys want to add before I land this plane?
Just thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a great platform.
Yes, and you're welcome. You're very welcome. To all of you guys who have watched this on YouTube, it's kind of like I can kind of see myself out there. I'm sorry about the dark part of the episode, if you will. But subscribe, like, share this video, and until next time, we'll see you.